My parents left me out of the family trip without a word, then demanded $17,000 for my brother's wedding, so I cut ties. And what came next broke them. Growing up, my parents weren't exactly what you'd call nurturing. They were the kind of people who thought doing the bare minimum for their kids meant we owed them for life. My dad, Mark, loved to act like some self-made genius who could do no wrong, always reminding me how lucky I was to have him as a dad. Meanwhile, my mom, Linda, had this habit of constantly reminding me how much she sacrificed for me. Usually, right before guilting me into doing something. They weren't physically abusive, but the mental load of being around them was suffocating. Everything was about them. If they helped me with something, they'd hold it over my head for years. If I succeeded, it was because they pushed me. If I failed, it was because I didn't listen to them. No matter how hard I tried, I was never enough compared to my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan, the golden boy, could do no wrong in their eyes. He was 4 years younger than me and had always been spoiled rotten. I'm not exaggerating when I say he got away with everything. While I was expected to get a job at 16, help around the house, and keep my grades up, Ryan was allowed to float through life. They'd make excuses for him constantly. He's still figuring things out, or he's just a kid. Never mind that he was 22 now, still living at home, barely working, and spending all his time gaming or hanging out with his girlfriend Kylie. By the time I was 25, I thought I'd escaped all that. I got married, moved to a different part of town, and tried to build a life of my own. For a while, it was great. My ex and I didn't have kids, which made things easier, but when the marriage fell apart, everything I'd built crumbled. The divorce wasn't messy, but splitting assets left me broke. I couldn't afford rent on my own, and with no close friends or family willing to take me in, I had to do the one thing I swore I'd never do: move back in with my parents. It was supposed to be temporary. I told myself, just save up for a few months and you'll be out. But temporary turned into a year. Living with them again was like being sucked into a time machine and dropped back into my teenage years. Every day was a reminder of why I'd left. My dad's lectures about how I needed to get my act together became a daily occurrence. Never mind that I was already working a part-time job and picking up freelance gigs to save up. He'd say things like, "When I was your age, I already had a house," conveniently forgetting that housing prices weren't the same in the 1980s. My mom wasn't any better. She had a knack for turning every conversation into a passive-aggressive dig at me. If I didn't do something exactly how she wanted, she'd say, "Well, I guess we raised Ryan right at least." She never missed an opportunity to compare me to Ryan, who of course, was thriving under their roof without lifting a finger. Ryan didn't care about any of this. If he noticed the tension in the house, he didn't let it bother him. Most of the time, he was in his room with his gaming setup, blasting music or scrolling through his phone. When he did interact with me, it was usually to make some snide comment about how I needed to lighten up or get my life together. The breaking point came 2 weeks before Christmas. I came home from my part-time job exhausted and ready to collapse on the couch, only to find the living room filled with suitcases. My parents and Ryan were buzzing around packing clothes and toiletries. I asked, "What's going on?" My dad barely looked up from what he was doing and said, "Oh, we're leaving for Italy tomorrow." I froze. Italy? Since when? My mom looked at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world. "Since we planned it weeks ago," she said. "We wanted to spend Christmas somewhere special this year. Ryan's been so excited about it." "Okay," I said slowly, still trying to process. "So you're all going?" "Of course," my dad said. "It's a family trip." Family trip. That hit me like a ton of bricks. "So I'm not invited?" My mom shrugged. "We didn't think you'd want to come, and honestly, with how things have been, we didn't think you'd be able to afford it." Ryan, who'd been sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone, finally chimed in. "Yeah. And it's not like you've been easy to be around lately." He smirked like he was enjoying the whole thing. It took everything in me not to lose it right there. "You could have at least told me," I said. My dad sighed like he was already tired of the conversation. "Look, it's not a big deal. Maybe if you got your act together, we'd have considered paying for your ticket, but you didn't. So next year maybe." Next year. As if I'd want to spend another year in their house. As if I'd want to go anywhere with them after this. The next morning, they left without so much as a goodbye. I sat in the empty house staring at the wall, trying to wrap my head around everything. It wasn't just about the trip. It was everything. A lifetime of being second to Ryan. Of being treated like an outsider in my own family. I told myself for years that I just needed to try harder. That maybe if I did everything right, they'd finally see me as an equal. But this was the moment I realized it would never happen. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. It was just one Christmas, right? But as the day went on, it started to sink in how much it really did matter. This was supposed to be family time. Even if things were tense or awkward between us, I thought we'd at least pretend to care about spending the holiday together. Instead, They flew across the world to eat pasta and take selfies while I ate a greasy burger on the couch. Christmas Day started off weird. I woke up and didn't even realize it was Christmas for a second. There was no smell of breakfast cooking, no sound of holiday music, nothing. The house was dead silent. I wandered into the kitchen, looked at the empty coffee pot and thought, is this it? I ended up making myself a bowl of cereal and sitting at the dining table, staring at the spot where our Christmas tree should have been. They didn't even bother putting one up this year because apparently Italy was all the holiday spirit they needed. I spent most of the morning scrolling through my phone hoping to distract myself, but that only made things worse. Every single social media post seemed to be about Christmas. Friends opening presents with their kids, SEA workers posting pictures of their decorated living rooms, even random acquaintances sharing videos of their dogs and Santa hats. And then there was my family. They didn't waste any time flooding their accounts with photos from Italy. The first picture I saw was of Ryan standing in front of the Colosseum wearing a cheesy Santa hat. The caption read, "Christmas in Rome. Best Christmas ever." Next was a shot of my parents at some fancy outdoor cafe holding glasses of sparkling water and grinning like they didn't have a care in the world. My mom's caption read, "Making memories with my favorite people." Hard eyes. Favorite people. Yeah. Message received loud and clear. By lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. I put my phone down and decided to do something. Anything to make the day feel less pathetic. I drove to the only place open, a fast food drive-thru. I sat in the parking lot, eating my burger and fries, watching other people with their families through their car windows. There was one moment where I saw a little kid in the back seat of a minivan, holding up a new toy for his parents to see, and it hit me hard. I wasn't even jealous of the toy or the family. It was this realization that no one in my own family had even bothered to ask how I was spending my Christmas. When I got back to the house, I tried to cheer myself up. I turned on a Christmas movie, Home Alone because irony, and tried to get into the holiday spirit. But it felt forced, like I was just going through the motions. Every now and then, I glance at my phone and there'd be another notification about a new post from my parents or Ryan. I should have turned the notifications off, but part of me couldn't look away. It was like watching a train wreck. The pictures kept coming. My dad posing in front of some famous fountain, Ryan holding a plate of food the size of his head, my mom gushing about the breathtaking views from their villa. The captions were unbearable, unforgettable, and the perfect Christmas. It felt like they were rubbing it in, even if that wasn't their intention. Or maybe it was. Who knows? By the evening, I'd officially hit rock bottom. I ended up eating leftovers from the fridge, some bland casserole my mom had made earlier that week, and sitting at the kitchen table alone. I started thinking about all the times I'd bent over backward for my family. The birthdays I'd spent helping my mom decorate. The weekends I'd given up to help my dad fix stuff around the house. The countless times I'd covered for Ryan when he screwed up. And this was how they repaid me, leaving me behind without so much as a second thought. It wasn't just hurtful, it was humiliating. That night, I finally broke down and called one of my old friends, Mike. I hadn't talked to him much since moving back in with my parents, mostly because I didn't want to explain why I was back in Cleveland. But I needed to talk to someone. And Mike was the kind of guy who didn't ask too many questions. When he picked up, I tried to play it cool, but he could tell something was up. "Hey, man," he said. "Merry Christmas. How's it going?" I hesitated. "Yeah, same to you. It's fine. Just a quiet day." "Quiet? What about your folks?" I could have lied, but I was too tired to keep up the charade. "They're in Italy," I said flatly. "They left last week." There was a long pause. "Wait, what? You didn't go with them?" "Nope. They didn't invite me." Mike let out a low whistle. "Damn, dude, that's cold." "Yeah," I said, laughing bitterly. "Tell me about it." We ended up talking for a while. Mostly about random stuff, old memories, dumb jokes, anything to take my mind off the train wreck of my Christmas. By the time we hung up, I felt a little better, but the pit in my stomach was still there. Something about that Christmas made it hit harder. Maybe it was because I was older now and starting to realize just how messed up the dynamic was. Or maybe it was because I'd finally run out of excuses for their behavior. Whatever it was, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this, letting them treat me like an afterthought while I bent over backward to please them. That Christmas was a wake-up call. Even if I didn't fully understand it at the time, it forced me to start thinking about what I wanted for my life, and what I wasn't willing to put up with anymore. But at that moment, all I could do was try to make it through the night. After the Italy fiasco, I thought things would quiet down. I mean, how much more could my parents and Ryan push? I was wrong. So wrong. A couple of days after they got back, I was sitting in the living room trying to avoid them as much as possible. I had no interest in hearing about the best Christmas ever for the millionth time. But of course, my dad decided to call a family meeting. It wasn't really a meeting. It was just them deciding they needed something from me, which was basically how every family meeting went. Dad started with his usual serious tone, leaning forward like he was about to drop some life-changing wisdom. "We've got something important to discuss," he said, as if he hadn't just spent thousands of dollars on a luxury trip. "It's about your brother." My stomach sank. Whenever the conversation started with Ryan, I knew it was going to end with me being roped into something I didn't want to do. Ryan proposed to Kylie while we were in Italy. Mom added with this proud little smile like he just won a Nobel Prize or something. It was beautiful. "They're so happy." I barely managed to nod. "Congrats, I guess." Ryan of course was sitting there smirking like he just conquered the world. "Yeah, we're planning a spring wedding. It's going to be amazing." I was already getting irritated. They hadn't even told me about Kylie being part of the trip or the engagement, and now they were acting like it was the highlight of the year. But I kept my mouth shut because I knew where this was going. Then Dad leaned back, folded his arms and hit me with it. "We're going to need your help with the wedding expenses." I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "Wait, what?" Mom jumped in all sweet and condescending. "It's not just you, honey. We're all pitching in. But weddings are expensive, and Ryan and Kylie are young. They don't have the resources yet." Ryan nodded, like that was supposed to make it all make sense. "Yeah, we're still figuring things out. It'd mean a lot if you could contribute." I stared at them. "How much are we talking about here?" "Oh, not much," Dad said casually, like he was asking for a cup of sugar. "Just $17,000. That's not unreasonable for a family contribution." I laughed. I couldn't help it. $17,000? Are you serious? You want me to give you that? Mom tilted her head like I was the unreasonable one. "It's not just for Ryan. It's for the family. Weddings are a big deal. You've been through one yourself so you know how it is." That comment stung more than I'd like to admit. My own wedding had been a disaster, not because of money but because of the relationship itself. And here they were acting like I should feel honored to shell out my non-existent savings for Ryan and Kylie's fairy tale. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't have that kind of money. And even if I did, why would I spend it on this? You guys just got back from a luxury trip. Maybe cut back a little instead of asking me to cover the bill." Ryan finally spoke up, his tone annoyingly smug. "Wow. Way to be supportive. This isn't just about me and Kylie. It's about family. You wouldn't even be living here if it weren't for Mom and Dad. You kind of owe them." "That was it," I snapped. "I owe them? Are you kidding me? I've been paying rent since I moved back, covering bills, helping around the house, while you sit here doing nothing." Mom's face turned sour. "That's not fair and you know it. We've done so much for you, especially after your divorce. The least you can do is show some gratitude." "Gratitude?" I said, practically laughing again. "I'm grateful, sure, but I'm not a bank. You can't just guilt me into giving you money I don't have." Dad shook his head like I was some huge disappointment. "We've been patient with you, but this attitude isn't going to get you anywhere." The room went dead silent for a second. I thought maybe they'd drop it, but then Mom leaned forward and gave me this look, half pity, half annoyance. "Honey, think about it this way. You're single. You don't have kids to worry about or a spouse to support. It's not like you have any major expenses." That one hit me hard. They made it sound like my life was worthless just because I didn't have a family of my own, like I wasn't allowed to save for myself or have my own plans. Unbelievable. I muttered, standing up. "No. The answer is no. I'm not giving you $17,000. Not for this. Not for anything." Mom gasped like I just slapped her. "How can you be so selfish? This is for Ryan, for family." "I'm not selfish," I shot back. "You are. You've spent my whole life putting him first and now you expect me to fund his wedding? No way." As I turned to leave, Dad said, "If that's how you feel, then we need to reevaluate the arrangement here. You're living under our roof, and we've been more than generous. Maybe it's time you start paying your fair share of rent." I froze in the doorway. "I already pay rent." "Not enough," he said. "If you're not going to contribute to the wedding, then you can contribute more here." I wanted to scream. "So let me get this straight. If I don't give you money for Ryan, you're going to make me pay more rent?" Mom nodded, all calm and self-righteous. "It's only fair. You've been here long enough. It's time to step up." I didn't even respond. I just walked out of the room and slammed the door to my tiny bedroom. My heart was pounding. My mind racing. How had it come to this? How had I ended up back in this house, stuck in this toxic cycle? I thought I was doing the right thing, moving back to save money and get back on my feet. I sat on my bed for a long time staring at the wall trying to process everything. They really expected me to cough up $17,000 for Ryan's wedding, and when I said no, they decided to punish me for it. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was about control. They'd always used guilt and manipulation to keep me in line. And now that I was standing up for myself, they didn't know how to handle it. I felt something shift inside me. I was done being their doormat. They could call me selfish, ungrateful, whatever they wanted. I didn't care anymore. My answer was no, and it was going to stay that way. The whole situation with my family hit a new level of ridiculous a few days after the family meeting. Just when I thought they couldn't get more entitled, my mom cornered me in the kitchen while I was eating a sandwich. She had this overly sweet tone, the kind she used when she was about to drop some manipulative suggestion she thought I wouldn't see coming. "So I've been thinking," she started, sitting down across from me. "You've got that car sitting out there and it's in really nice shape, isn't it?" I frowned. "Yeah, it's fine. Why?" She smiled, like she'd just come up with the most brilliant idea ever. "Well, you don't really need it, do you? I mean, you work from home most of the time, and when you go out you're not going far. What if you sold it and put that money toward Ryan and Kylie's wedding? It would make such a difference, and we could all help you get a cheap used car later on if you really need one." I just stared at her. Was she serious? "Wait," I said, holding up a hand. "You want me to sell my car, my only car, to help pay for Ryan's wedding?" She nodded like this was the most reasonable suggestion in the world. "It's not just for Ryan, it's for the family, and you'd be helping out so much. Besides, think of how much money you'd get for it. It's a nice car." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I need that car. It's not just for work. It's my only way to get anywhere. I'm not selling it, period." Her smile faded and she gave me that disappointed look she'd perfected over the years. "You're being so short-sighted. This is an opportunity to show Ryan and Kylie how much you support them. Family helps family, you know, right?" I shot back. "But apparently family only goes one way in this house. I'm not selling my car, and that's final." She sighed and stood up, shaking her head. "I don't know why you're being so stubborn. You're making this harder than it needs to be." Then she walked out of the kitchen, leaving me sitting there fuming. That conversation was the last straw. They wanted me to give up my car, the one thing I'd managed to hold on to through all the crap I'd been through, just so they could throw a fancy party for Ryan and Kylie. It wasn't just entitlement anymore, it was outright insanity. I decided right then and there that I had to get out of that house, no matter what it took. From that point on, I started planning my escape in secret. I wasn't about to let them talk me into anything or guilt me into staying. Every time they brought up the wedding or family contributions, I'd nod along pretending to listen while in my head I was figuring out my next move. The first step was finding a place to live. I spent hours scrolling through apartment listings, looking for anything remotely affordable. Most of what I found was either way out of my price range or so rundown that I'd probably fall through the floor the second I walked in. But eventually, I found a tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, just one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was clean and the rent was low enough that I could make it work. When I went to see the place, the landlord seemed skeptical about renting to me. I didn't blame him. I wasn't exactly rolling in cash, and my credit wasn't great after the divorce. But after I scraped together the deposit and promised to pay the first month's rent up front, he agreed to let me move in. The catch: I had to be out of my parents' house and into the new place by the weekend. That gave me less than 5 days to figure everything out. Packing was the next challenge. I didn't have a ton of stuff, but I knew I couldn't just start loading boxes into my car in broad daylight. If my parents or Ryan saw me, they'd demand to know what I was doing. And I wasn't in the mood for another guilt trip. So I decided to do it in secret. Over the next few days, I started packing little by little, sneaking boxes out to my car when no one was around. I'd wait until my mom was upstairs or my dad was in the garage, then grab a few things and make a quick run to the car. It felt ridiculous, like I was some kind of criminal plotting an escape, but it was the only way to avoid another confrontation. By Thursday night, I was almost ready to go. My car was packed with everything I needed and I had the keys to my new apartment in my pocket. All I had to do was make it through one more day without tipping anyone off. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep before making my move. I grabbed the last of my things, just a couple of bags and a box of random stuff, and quietly carried them out to the car. I sat in the car for a while staring at the dark, silent house. If I tried to explain myself, they'd twist my words, guilt me into staying, or somehow make me feel like the bad guy for wanting my own life. Leaving quietly was the only way to take control. Finally, I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway, careful not to make too much noise. I didn't know what the future held, but at least it was mine to figure out. After I left, I didn't just move out of my parents' house. I cut ties completely. I wasn't half-hearted about it either. I stopped answering texts and calls from my mom, dad, and Ryan on my phone, social media, and even email. I didn't leave any gaps for them to squeeze through. It might sound harsh, but I knew how they operated. If I gave them even an inch, they'd use it to guilt-trip me or manipulate me into coming back. I couldn't let that happen. I'd made my decision, and for once, I was sticking to it. That peace didn't last long though. About 2 months after I moved out, I started hearing through the grapevine that Ryan and Kylie's wedding was turning into a disaster. I hadn't asked for updates, it was just one of those things people seem to think I'd want to know about. Honestly, I didn't care much, but the stories were so ridiculous that I couldn't help but pay attention. Apparently, my parents had bitten off way more than they could chew. They'd promised Ryan and Kylie this big fancy wedding, even though they didn't have the money to back it up. They'd been banking on me chipping in and probably assumed I'd cave eventually. But when that didn't happen, they were stuck scrambling for cash. From what I heard, they tried to get Kylie's family to pitch in, but that didn't go over well. Her parents flat out refused, saying, "If you can't afford a wedding, don't have one." Honestly, I respected that. Of course, my mom didn't take it well. She tried to play the victim, crying about how unfair it was that Kylie's family wasn't helping, but Kylie's mom wasn't having it. She told my mom, "It's not our responsibility to pay for your son's wedding." Ouch. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that conversation. Meanwhile, Ryan was stuck in the middle of it all. From what I heard, he was getting frustrated with my parents for overstepping and with Kylie's family for not budging. But instead of stepping up and taking control of the situation, he just let the chaos swirl around him. Classic Ryan. Always expecting someone else to clean up his messes. The breaking point came about a month before the wedding. Kylie gave Ryan an ultimatum. Either he set boundaries with my parents or she was done. She was sick of my mom micromanaging every little detail and my dad trying to cut corners to save money. She wanted a partner, not a mama's boy, and she was ready to walk if he couldn't figure it out. At first, Ryan chose my parents. Of course, he did. They'd been coddling him his whole life and he wasn't about to rock the boat. He told Kylie she needed to chill and that my mom just wanted the best for them. Apparently, that didn't go over well. Kylie called off the engagement, packed her things, and moved back in with her parents. It was a mess. My parents were furious. Not at Ryan, but at Kylie for abandoning him. My mom even called Kylie ungrateful, which is ironic considering she was the one who ruined the whole thing by trying to control everything. Ryan, for his part, moped around and acted like the victim, telling everyone how heartbroken he was. About 2 weeks after Kylie left, I got a call from an unknown number. I normally don't answer those, but something told me to pick up. Sure enough, it was Kylie. "Hey, it's me," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I know we've never been close, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I blinked, caught completely off guard. "Okay, sorry for what?" "For everything," she said. "For not standing up for you sooner, for all of it." "I didn't say anything mostly because I didn't know what to say," she continued. "I didn't realize how bad it was until I was in the middle of it. Your parents are a lot and Ryan just lets them do whatever they want. I tried to stick it out but I couldn't anymore. I'm sorry they put you through that." Her words caught me off guard. It wasn't like I needed her apology, but hearing it felt validating. For years, I'd been treated like I was the problem, like I was the selfish one for not bending over backward to please my parents. And now, here was Kylie. Someone who'd been on the other side of it telling me I wasn't crazy. "Thanks," I said finally. "I appreciate that." We talked for a little while longer, mostly about the wedding drama and how my parents had tried to take over everything. She said she wasn't sure if she and Ryan would work things out, but she didn't sound optimistic. "He's too tied to them," she said. "I don't think he knows how to function without their approval." After we hung up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt bad for Kylie. She didn't deserve to get dragged into my family's mess. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but feel a little vindicated. Maybe now people would start to see my parents and Ryan for who they really were. A few days later, I got another call, this time from Ryan. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Can we talk?" "What do you want, Ryan?" I asked, not bothering to hide my annoyance. I screwed up," he said. "Kylie left and Mom and Dad are freaking out and I feel like everything's falling apart." I leaned back in my chair waiting for him to get to the point. "I know I've been a jerk," he said finally. "I should have stood up for you. I should have, I don't know, been a better brother. I just want to say I'm sorry." For a second, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to accept his apology and move on, but another part of me couldn't forget all the times he'd stood by while our parents treated me like dirt. "Look," I said, "I appreciate the apology, but I'm not ready to forgive you. It's going to take time. A lot of time." Ryan sighed. "Yeah, I get that. I hope we can fix things someday." "Maybe," I said, "but not today." For the first time, Ryan had acknowledged how messed up things were. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. Still, I wasn't ready to let him or anyone else in my family back into my life. Not yet, maybe not ever. A few months after the whole wedding drama blew up, I started hearing whispers through mutual friends and acquaintances about my parents. Apparently, things had taken a turn for the worse. It wasn't surprising considering how they always lived way beyond their means, but this time it sounded serious, like drowning in debt serious. At first, I brushed it off. It wasn't my problem anymore, and I didn't want to get sucked back into their nonsense. But then the calls started. I'd already blocked their numbers, so they couldn't contact me directly. But they started using other people to pass messages along. I'd get texts from old neighbors or extended relatives saying things like, "Your mom wanted me to tell you she's worried about you," or "Your dad asked if you could call him. It's important." It was all pretty transparent. They didn't care about me. They just wanted something. That was their go-to move. Feigned concern to get their foot in the door, then drop whatever demand they had in mind. I wasn't falling for it this time. Eventually, one of my mom's messages slipped through. A mutual friend, Sarah, who didn't know the full story, forwarded me an email my mom had sent her thinking it might be urgent. It wasn't. It was just more guilt-tripping. The email was classic Linda. It started off all sweet and concerned. "I hope you've been doing well, honey. I think about you every day and pray that you're okay." Then it quickly shifted gears. "Your father and I have been struggling lately. We've had some unexpected expenses, and it's been hard to keep up. I hate to ask, but if you could help us out financially, it would mean so much. Family always comes first. Right? Unexpected expenses. Sure, more like they'd burned through their savings trying to throw a wedding they couldn't afford, and now they were paying the price." I didn't reply. I wasn't even tempted to. They'd made their bed, and now they could lie in it. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing more details about just how bad things had gotten. Apparently, they'd maxed out multiple credit cards trying to cover wedding deposits, decorations, and other nonsense. Then when Kylie walked away, they lost everything they'd put down. Non-refundable deposits, unpaid balances, the works. They were left with piles of debt and nothing to show for it. On top of that, Ryan had moved out shortly after his apology to me, which meant my parents had lost their golden boy and any financial help he might have contributed. Though, let's be real, Ryan wasn't exactly known for pulling his weight. I heard through Sarah that they'd been calling him too, begging him to come back and help them out. He wasn't biting though. Turns out, Kylie had put her foot down and told him that if he ever wanted to make things work with her, he had to set boundaries with my parents. For once, Ryan actually listened to her. He told my mom and dad he couldn't support them financially and that they needed to figure things out on their own. To say they didn't take it well would be an understatement. "They're blaming everyone but themselves," Sarah told me one night over coffee. "Your mom's been telling people that Kylie's family sabotaged the wedding and that you abandoned them in their time of need." I just shook my head. Of course, they are. It's never their fault. They're allergic to accountability. Then one day, I got the message I'd been waiting for. A text from another mutual contact. "Hey, just so you know, your parents are selling the house. They're downsizing because they can't keep up with the mortgage." I wasn't surprised. That house had always been way too big for them, and the upkeep alone must have cost a fortune. But hearing it made everything feel real. They were actually losing their grip on the life they'd spent years trying to project. This image of a perfect, successful family. It was crumbling, and for once, I wasn't the one they could lean on to hold it together. The final straw came about a month later when my dad showed up at my apartment. I didn't even know how he found me. I hadn't given them my new address and I'd been careful about who I told. But there he was standing at my door looking more haggard than I'd ever seen him. He wasn't his usual smug, overconfident self. He looked desperate. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. I didn't want to let him in, but I also didn't want to cause a scene in front of my neighbors, so I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my tone as flat as possible. "We're in trouble," he said, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Your mom and we've hit a rough patch financially. We're behind on the mortgage, and the credit card companies are calling nonstop. We don't know what to do." I folded my arms. "And this has what to do with me?" He gave me that look. The one he always used when he was about to launch into a lecture. But this time it didn't come. Instead he just sighed. "You're our son. We thought you might want to help." I laughed bitterly. "Help? Like you helped me when I was struggling? Like you included me in your Italy trip or cared about my feelings during the wedding drama? Sorry, but I don't owe you anything. Don't be like that," he said, his voice rising. "We're family." "Exactly." I shot back. "Family's supposed to support each other, right? Funny how that only applies when it benefits you." For a moment, he just stood there staring at me like he couldn't believe I was actually saying no. Then he tried a different tactic. "What about the house? It's your childhood home. Don't you care about what happens to it?" That one stung, but I didn't let it show. "It stopped feeling like home a long time ago," I said. "Good luck selling it." I didn't give him a chance to respond. I turned and walked back into my apartment, locking the door behind me. After that, I didn't hear from them again. Not directly anyway. I heard through Sarah that they eventually sold the house and moved into a small rental on the other side of town. They burned so many bridges that no one else in the family was willing to help them out either. I knew I'd made the right choice. For years, I'd let them take advantage of me, make me feel like I wasn't enough, and use guilt to control me. Cutting ties was the best decision I'd ever made. Sometimes walking away isn't about abandoning people, it's about saving yourself. And that's exactly what I did.